All right, good morning, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and open this meeting of the Mason County Commission for August 31st. And we're going to begin with a Pledge of Allegiance. But before we do, I hope you will indulge me for a minute. I'm going to ask that people stand, not just for the Pledge of Allegiance, but first for a moment of silence for the fallen heroes that we just lost. People will contemplate many things during a moment of silence. Some people will pray to God. Some people will contemplate the mortality of their loved ones that are in the service that they have to worry about every day. There are many different things that people do during a moment of silence. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask us in a moment to please stand and take a moment of silence, after which I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance in a slow and respectful manner. So if you wouldn't mind, please join me in standing for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic from which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless our fallen soldiers. Roll call, please.
Commissioner District 1, Randy Netherland.
Here.
Commissioner District 2, Kevin Schutte.
Here.
Commissioner District 3, Sharon Trask.
I'm here.
Thank you. Item number 4 is correspondence and organizational business. Do we have correspondence to come before us?
We do. Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board sent the following.
A liquor license change of location for Zek Interiors and Designs and Twisted Sisters Gardens, LLC. Marijuana licenses due to expire, and a marijuana cooperative registration location for 1190 East Agate Road. The Washington State Department of Transportation sent in a letter regarding highway advertising control.
Thank you. Item number 4.2, news release. 2022 water and sewer system rate increase for North Bay and Russellwood and Beards Cove. Richard.
Morning.
Morning.
Mason County resolutions number 146-08 and number 05-09 and 06-09, all water and sewer rates and fees at the Mason County owned and operated Russellwood, Beards Cove, and North Bay Case Inlet water and sewer systems will increase by 3.4% for the 2022 calendar year. The increase corresponds to the April 2021 Consumer Price Index CPU-U for the Bremerton area for the 1-year period ending April 2021. This increase applies to all charges associated with the referenced water and sewer utility systems, including monthly service rates, connection and permit fees, and other related charges, as well as covering the annual cost increase experienced by the county for the operation and maintenance of the above referenced water and sewer utility systems. Notices will be mailed out to all Beards Cove, North Bay Case Inlet, and Russellwood utility users because of these rate changes.
Thank you. Mackenzie, is there any other correspondence or organizational business to come before this body?
There is not.
Thank you very much. We are going to move on to item number 5. Item number 5 is our open forum for citizens input. This is your opportunity to speak to the commission on any item that is not on the agenda. If it is on the agenda, I would ask that you please hold off and wait, and you'll be given an opportunity to speak or testify when that comes up. If it's not on the agenda, this is your opportunity to speak to the commission regarding those items. With that being said, please remember, there's a 3-minute time limit per person. There's 15-minute time limit for everybody, so please be brief and be to the point, and again, be kind. With that being said, our open forum for citizens input if you would like to talk to the commission right now, I would ask that you please raise your hand in the participants chat box if you know how to do that. Again, raise your hand in the participants chat box if you'd like to speak about an item that is not on the agenda. Okay, if you do not know how to do that, I'll ask you right now to unmute yourself and say your name, and I will call on you at that time and give you that opportunity. If you'd like to speak on an item not on the agenda, please unmute yourself, say your name, and I can call on you. I see none. So we will move forward to item number 6, which is the adoption of today's agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of today's agenda as presented.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded for the adoption of today's agenda as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. We have no minutes to approve this time before us. So I'm going to go past item number 7 to item number 8, which is our approval of our action agenda. All items listed on the action agenda will be read to the public, and it will be enacted with one motion unless a commissioner or citizen asks for it to be removed for a separate vote. We will read all the items to you, and we will ask you afterwards whether you have any questions that would help you to decide whether to take it off. But if you'd like to testify or talk about the issue, we're going to ask you to simply just request that it be removed, and you'll be given an opportunity after the vote on the approval of the action agenda. With that being said, Commissioner Trask, would you take items number 8.1 through 8.4? Commissioner Schutte, would you take 8.5 through 8.8? And I will take 8.9 through 8.12.
Absolutely. Item 8.1, approval of warrants and treasurer electronic remittances, claims clearing fund, warrant numbers 8082333 through 8082840 in the amount of $1,816,966.17. Direct deposit fund, warrant numbers 80163 through 80559 in the amount of $782,822.78. Salary clearing fund, warrant numbers 7006117 through 7006139 in the amount of $507,920.97. Item 8.2, approval for the chair to sign the Mason County Housing Authority Memorandum of Understanding for the amount of $101,871 to provide financial assistance for an executive director, contract with Teresa D. Johnson, CPA, clerical assistance, and in-kind use of office equipment. Item 8.3, approval to recruit and hire a temporary full-time housing community health specialist position in community services to handle additional housing grants deliverables. Item 8.4, approval for the chair to sign the Tyler Technologies Chart of Accounts redesign statement of work for the amount of $28,000.
Approval for the chair, item 8.5, approval for the chair to sign the Corrections Deputy Memorandum of Understanding for a $10,000 sign-on bonus to new recruits between Woodworkers, Local Lodge, W38, IAM, Corrections Support Staff, and Mason County. Item 8.6, approval of the draft Parks and Trails 2021-2022 Real Estate Excise Tax 2 project list and approval to hire an additional full-time employee for the last 4 months of 2021 out of the REIT 2 budgeted funding. Item 8.7, approval to enter into contract with MasonWebTV.com for live streaming services of commission meetings, Board of Health meetings, and additional meetings as agreed to by both parties for 2022. The rate per regular meeting is $100 for up to 2 hours, and each additional hour is $25. Item 8.8, approval to authorize Frank Pinter, interim county administrator, to sign the Department of Commerce's request for amendment to the Community Development Block Grant contract number 18-62210-039 for the microenterprise building connections, strengthening businesses in Mason County project.
Item number 8.9, approval to call for requests for proposals, RFP, for the Welcome Center Development Services. Item number 8.10, approval of the Department of Ecology Agreement SWML SWFA 2021 MACOPH 00078 for local solid waste financial assistance in the amount of $130,868 with a 25% match of $43,622.67 from solid waste tipping fees for a total eligible cost of $174,490.67 for a 2-year period of July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2023. Item number 8.11, approval of the resolution creating the Mason County Clean Water District Advisory Committee. Item number 8.12, approval of the Shelton Private Storm Facilities Agreement with Operations and Maintenance Manual Attachment requiring the county to maintain the stormwater management systems. Ladies and gentlemen, all these items have now been read into the record, and this is your opportunity to ask a question that may help you to decide whether or not to take it off for a separate vote. Again, if you want to testify, we're going to ask you to have it taken off, and you'll be given an opportunity to testify at that time. So right now, if you want to raise your hand on the participants list, if you would like to ask a question regarding any of the items that we just read to you. I see none. If you don't know how to do that, please unmute yourself, say your name, and I will call on you. I see none. Okay, then are there any items that anybody would like taken off for a separate vote? Commissioners, we'll go with you first. Are there any items you'd like taken off for a separate vote?
Not for me.
Okay. Are there anybody in the public that have any items they would like taken off for a separate vote? If so, please raise your hand in the participants box. If you don't know how, now's the time to unmute yourself, say your name, and we will take whatever item you request off for a separate vote. I see none, I hear none. Commissioners, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve items 8.1 through 8.12 on the action agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and second for the approval of all the action agenda items, 8.1 through 8.12. Are there any comments that any commissioners would like to make regarding any of the items?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just 2 comments. First, on item 8.5, our signing bonus for corrections deputies. Appreciate the forward thinking of the jail leadership as well as the union leadership for agreeing to this. There's no question that there's a hiring issue happening in public safety positions, not just here in Mason County, but statewide as well. And just appreciate the agreement on this to move forward to try and recruit new corrections deputies to Mason County and look forward to seeing this policy work. And then just another comment on item 8.7, appreciate Mason Web TV always being willing and able to stream these meetings to the public. Since COVID began, we've also started streaming our Monday briefing sessions, and that's a change that I hope we continue going forward with. As long as Mason Web TV is amenable to it, that's a change that I hope is something that sticks with our practices here at the commission well beyond COVID. I think it's a great way to increase participation and transparency and invite the public into our briefings if they're unable to attend in person in the future.
Thank you. Commissioner Trask, do you have anything?
I'd like to ditto those remarks. And then also, I would say that our the contract with Mason Web TV is a bargain. You look at that's extremely. He does a great job, and it's worth every penny of it. And then also just the Mason County Clean Water Advisory Committee. I think that's a positive step moving forward and getting all of our groups together. Instead of having 3 different or 4 different groups, we have one that's working on clean water. So looking forward to that committee.
Thank you. And myself, I'd like to comment on item number 8.2. Thank you, Commission, for standing up to do what we need to do to take care of the Mason County Housing Authority. This is going to be the act that changes everything. A special thank you to Kathy Haig for sticking it out through the hardest times, as this is going to change it to where I expect we're going to be seeing potentially even new housing in the next few years because of the actions we're taking today. I also want to ditto the comments in regards to our corrections deputies. You know, folks, if you have anybody out there that's looking for a good, steady job, well-paying, good benefits, and a great group of people, please let them know, because this is something that can become a career for different individuals, and we hope it does in helping to protect and take care of our community at the same time. And as for Mason Web TV, it's so funny, when we first started, it was a little tiny side dish that we were doing, and people were wondering if it had any value. And then comes COVID, and it's become the meat and potatoes of everything that we do here when it comes to communicating with the community. So Diedrich, a very special thankful to you for thinking so outside the box originally when you were coming up with these ideas to do it, and you did it on your own. You were doing it originally for free everywhere. It's turned into be a real necessity and a great bargain, as one of the commissioners had pointed out, a great bargain. We get the biggest bang for the buck for the work that you do. So thank you. So with that being said, commissioners, let's see, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. All right, next up, other business, department heads and elected officials. Are there any department heads or elected officials who would like to speak at this time? If so, please raise your hand in the participants box first. If you don't know how, which I would hope our elected officials and department head would, please go ahead and unmute yourself now and say your name, and I'll call on you. Okay, apparently there are no department heads or elected officials who would like to speak at this time. So we are going to go on to item number 10, which is our public hearing. I'm going to go ahead and open public hearing number 1. Public hearing is to consider the map correction of the official development areas zoning map panel 8 of 10 for parcel 32026-10-900021. It's 1 acre from rural natural resource RNR to rural residential 5 RR5. Staff Kel Rowan.
Morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
I am filling in for Marissa Watson, who is on vacation, but she worked on this. But this rezone request was made by the property owner, but once Marissa started, working on the staff report, she realized that there was a map error and that this should have been zoned as rural residential from the beginning. And so through the packet, I think you see the evidence there is regarding, it was platted in, or it was divided in, I believe, 1989. And then in the early 90s is when we started looking at zoning and implementing zoning and designating the resource lands. And so that little 1 acre piece got caught up in the larger parcel, but it should have been separated out into rural residential. And so we, her and I discussed it and agreed that we've had similar situations throughout the county in the past, and we've always processed those as staff processing and not through the applicant. And so we reimbursed her fees and we're bringing it forward. The planning commission did, agree to recommend approval, or really just acknowledging that this, through the evidence, that this was an error, a mapping error. And so we'd like to correct it.
Okay, now the staff has given us our presentation. This is an opportunity for anybody out in the public and for the commission to ask a question of staff regarding their presentation. This is not an opportunity at this point to testify. If you want to testify, you'll be given that opportunity. But if there's a question that you have regarding staff's presentation, now is your opportunity. Again, please raise your hand on the participants list. I see none. If you would like to ask a question of staff, please unmute yourself and say your name, and I can call on you. I see none. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff?
No.
Okay, then I will close this part of the public hearing and move to public testimony. Is there anybody in the public who would like to testify on this item? If so, I ask that you please raise your hand so that I can call on you. I see no hands raised. If you don't know how, please unmute yourself, say your name now, and you'll be given the opportunity to speak. I see none. I hear none. I will close public participation and move to commissioner deliberation and or a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the map correction of the official development area zoning map, panel 8 of 10 for parcel 32026-10-90021, 1 acre, from rural natural resource to rural residential 5.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded that the Board of County Commissioners approve the map correction of the official development area zoning map, panel 8 of 10 for parcel 32026-10-90021. It's 1 acre from the rural natural resources RNR to rural residential 5 RR5. Any further discussions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. The hearing is closed. All right, next up is our public hearing is item number 10.2. I will open the public hearing to approve or a request to approve the request to rezone 3 parcels 32007-14-90024 and 32007-14-90021 and 32007-14-90034 from neighborhood residential NR to commercial industrial CI. Again, staff Kel Rowan presenting.
Thank you. And again, I am presenting on behalf of Marissa Watson, who prepared the staff report and took this through the Planning Commission. We do have some public comments that were sent in for this proposal, and I believe some of those folks are on the meeting this morning, as well as the applicant themselves. I'll give a broad overview, and then we'll have some good discussion. So these are three parcels that are all adjacent to each other, and they are also adjacent to existing commercial industrial properties along Johns Prairie Road. There is an access off of the Hiawatha Road, which is a private easement. The applicant and owner of these properties owns a portion or all. I don't know that for sure, but the applicant can clarify that. But a portion of that, at least a portion of the Hiawatha easement is owned by the applicant. But they also have direct access from Johns Prairie Road through their existing owned commercial industrial properties that could get access to these 3 currently zoned residential properties. And they can talk about how they would like to use that going forward. The Planning Commission did recommend approval to the board for this rezone with the caveat that the access issue be that the commercial truck or the commercial trucks using access off of Hiawatha be restricted and only allowed to use the other access off of Johns Prairie. And then also, I wanted to clarify, just looking at some of the letters and some of the concerns, Mason County Code currently requires that if these 3 residential properties are rezoned to commercial industrial, they will have a required 15-foot minimum vegetated buffer. There is existing native vegetation there now, so that could be maintained, or if they were cleared, the applicant would be required to replant and maintain a natural vegetation buffer, and that's within our code already. So I believe our code already addresses some of those concerns. With that, the county staff is recommending approval along with the Planning Commission. We believe the 15-foot buffer is adequate, and we will defer to the board on how they want to address the commercial access issue.
All right, thank you, Kel. So right now is an opportunity for questions of staff regarding the presentation. Again, this is only regarding the presentation that was just given. You will be given an opportunity to testify later on. But if you have questions regarding the testimony at this point, this is your opportunity to ask. So I will ask you again, please raise your hand first in the participants block if that is Your wish, if you have a question.
I wonder if you could tell me where the participants block is.
Okay, there's an area down below where you can do chat participants, but that's okay, Mark. I'm going to give you an opportunity to unmute right now and do that anyway.
Okay.
Please, if you don't mind, for the record, please say your name and perhaps where you're from.
Mark Golda. I'm a resident of the Hiawatha Park, which is adjacent to these 3 parcels that are proposed for a land use change.
Thank you, Mark. So Mark, if you'd like, if you have a question regarding the presentation that was just given, this is your opportunity. I'm going to call on you and let you ask your question. But remember, this is not a time for testimony. You will be given that opportunity. If you'd like to ask a question, please go ahead.
Well, this falls between a question and a comment. The presentation that Kel just presented is quite inadequate as to the circumstances of this property, and it's very incomplete.
Okay, well,
So
Mark, you'll be given an opportunity to testify to that. Right now, this is an opportunity to ask a question regarding the presentation.
Okay.
Do you have a question? No? Okay. Is there anybody else at this point who would like to ask a question regarding the presentation? We will give you an opportunity to testify, I assure you. Okay, unmute yourself and say your name, if you do. I see none or hear no more. I have a question, Kel. If there was to be a restriction of which roads can be used for access, how would that be enforced?
Well, that's a good question. I would, because it's a private easement, I would like for the applicant to be able to give a presentation about their intent for the rezone and the reason for expanding their existing business there and how they plan on using that road. In talking with them, I feel comfortable that not using Hiawatha as a commercial access is adequate. If they are being untruthful and that started happening, the condition of the rezone, that would be that we could put that a notice to title, and the county code enforcement officer would have to act on that.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff regarding the presentation?
I do. Thanks, Kel. I appreciate the presentation this morning. 2 questions. One, on the access, is that something that would be, and I guess maybe this will be a little bit more clear if and when the applicant discusses their intentions, but this is a rezone. If they were to expand, would there also be a permitting process that would be triggered? And would that not be the more appropriate place to discuss access as a condition of issuing a permit versus the rezone itself?
Right. So if the board were to, for example, recommend or approve the rezone and then do some sort of a condition about access, that would be documented. So at the time that the applicant came in for permits, planning staff would notify or have that notice, and then they would condition a building permit or whatever permits that they get, depending on the activity that they would propose. It would become a condition of that permit.
Okay. And then on the 15-foot buffer that's in code that you referenced, do we have any flexibility on that if we wanted to increase that to a 30-foot buffer, or are we bound by what is in code?
Well, my understanding is, it can be tricky to condition rezones, right? I mean, because there's some gray area on, it all becomes a legal issue on whether the applicant or other citizens, appeal that sort of thing. But in general, now we did do that, or you guys did do that for the Bayshore rezone, where you had an additional 50-foot buffer from what they had proposed, and that was an additional 100-foot buffer from what DNR requires. So, you know, it isn't without precedent that we can do that. It's just a matter of, you know, if the applicant doesn't accept that and they appeal, I don't have enough experience in that kind of legal realm to know whether or not the county would prevail or not. So I just am being honest, and I'm not sure how that would go, but I think we have the ability to, you know, to condition it or, you know, talk with the applicant on if that's something that they'd be willing to accept. If you were willing to accept as a basis of accepting the reason or approving the rezone.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Trask, do you have any questions?
Well, both of you took my question, so I don't know what that says, or whether we're thinking alike or whether the questions were pretty obvious. Not at this time.
Thank you. So, Kel, one of the things that came up from the conversation you just had with Commissioner Schutte is one of the difficulties when I was on the Planning Commission is we always had to remember that regardless of what was somebody wanted to do with it, the rezone was a rezone. And because somebody comes in with a plan does not mean they have to stick to that plan afterwards. So I
Correct.
just wanted to put that out there, that if we do decide on a rezone, all that can change tomorrow. If we had one that allowed for an amusement park, but they were going to put it in a racetrack, they could still put an amusement park later if that's what they chose. So is that part of the problem when it comes to enforcing? Or
it can be. I mean, of course, you know, you are correct. Once it's rezoned to commercial industrial, you know, the current applicant, you know, none of us ever know what's going to happen in life. And so, you know, there could be a change in ownership and then a new owner, you know, wants to take advantage of that new zoning, but it's a different use type. So, you know, there are, for the applicant, they're requesting a rezone and you can deny that. And so, or you can condition it, and that might be adequate, that they say, you know, I prefer the rezone and I will take these additional conditions. That's up to them, you know, to have that discussion. And I think it's worth having. And if they then don't follow through, or their predecessor, the future owner, doesn't follow through on their conditions, it is up to the county to then enforce those conditions that were placed on the property. So we have that authority to enforce, and that will be in our, you know, I like to trust people that they're going to do what they say, but you are correct that, you know, land changes ownership and you don't know who the next person is. But I think being careful about those conditions and making them as clear as possible helps future staff to enforce if there becomes problems.
thank you, Kel. Is there any other questions from the commission first? And I'll ask again from the public. Any other questions from the commission?
One real quick. How is this notified? How
Through the SEPA process, rezones are considered a non-project action because, to Commissioner Netherland's point, you know, this current owner has a planned action in mind, but the rezone itself is considered non-project. And so through the SEPA process, we are required to notify property owners within 300 feet. So I don't think every single landowner within the Hiawatha Boulevard got notice, but there was also notice posted, I think, near the entry, and then, you know, word of mouth through I don't know if they have a homeowners association or just the neighbors, you know, being able to share information.
All right, thank you.
So is there anybody in the public that has a question of Kel regarding the presentation? Again, one last time, please raise your hand. I'll ask you now to unmute yourself if you have a question and say your name. Give me the opportunity to call on you though before speaking. Anybody who would like to ask a question? Hearing none, then I'm going to go ahead and move forward. But before I do, commissioners, it sounds as though staff would like the applicant to speak. If we do allow them to speak during the presentation time, they will be open for questions and stuff also. Do you have any objection to allowing them to speak at this point? Commissioner?
Yeah.
Okay, so to the applicant, I want to make it clear, if you would like to speak now as part of the presentation, you will also be asked questions, and you'll be, requested that you would answer their questions as a staff member would. You could also just wait until public testimony, and you could testify on your own behalf without that issue. So the applicant, is that Mark? Are you an applicant?
Correct.
So Mark, would you like to speak now during the presentation part, or would you rather just wait and do it as public testimony?
I would like to add a couple thoughts on the buffering and landscaping requirements.
Okay, well, right now, if you don't mind that, you can do that during public testimony, but if you'd like to talk about your application to the public and what you're doing while you're doing it, you'd be welcome to do that right now at this time.
Okay. Yeah, just for those who haven't read the application, the purpose of this rezone at the time, as everyone's been talking about, is Hiawatha Corp, which is actually changed hands, as looking to expand their current business at their current location so that they continue to grow and have a viable business on Johns Prairie. And rezoning these 3 parcels would allow them to adjoin their current warehouse sites and create a new facility to help with their storage of evergreen products, and particularly cold storage of evergreen products at their current site. So that is the current purpose of that. And as mentioned, they have current access through Johns Prairie that's adjacent across the street from their main headquarters, and that will be the proposed, once it comes to a project time period, as the entrance to this site. And any necessary fire apparatus or emergency services is the only contemplated access off Hiawatha Boulevard.
Thank you, Mark. So I'm going to go with commissioners first. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mark regarding his presentation?
At the moment.
Okay. All right. So again, for those that are in the public, this is not an opportunity for you to testify or get angry at anybody or be disrespectful in any manner. This is an opportunity for you to ask a question of Mark regarding the presentation that he just gave. Again, I ask that we treat each other with respect at all times, please. And I hope if you have a question, it is a good, legitimate question. If you want to testify, we are going to give you the opportunity to testify after this part. We will open it to public testimony. So right now, I'm going to go first with anybody who would like to raise their hand on the participants list who would like to ask a question of the applicant. Well, first, Mark, I should ask, is there any other person on here, another applicant partial with you that you would like to? Okay, thank you. So I see no hands up. If you would like to unmute yourself, all I ask is right now you say your name, because there may be several of you that have a question, and I will call on you individually. So if you would like to ask Mark a question, please say your name now.
And Mark Golden.
Mark, okay. Anybody else who would like to ask Mark came in a question? Okay, Mark Golden, please go ahead and ask your question.
Well, I have 2 brief questions. First question is, does Mark live in the area that he proposes to change from residential to industrial?
Go ahead and ask your second question also, because after that, then we're going to.
The second question is this. Mark Kamen and myself both co-attended the Planning Commission meeting in which the commission unanimously laid down certain conditions for approval. And I've noticed that Mark Kamen, whenever he's asked about his use of the property, he uses very relativistic, vague terms. He's used the terms.
Excuse me, Mark, you're giving opinions right now. If you have a question for him, please ask a question.
Well, why does every time Mark Kamen has asked a question about what the property will be used for after the proposed change, why does he keep using vague terms like at this time and contemplated use?
Okay.
That's the question.
Thank you. So again, Mark, you don't have to answer these specifically, but do you live in the area
I do not
that
live
they're talking about rezone? Okay, you don't. And do you have a reason, or do you even feel like you're using vague answers?
So about the vague at this point, as the commission has discussed earlier, we can, as 2020 and 21 has shown, we cannot predict the future. So no one expected COVID to transform our world this last year, and I don't like to speak in certainties when I am not certain of everyone's future and our future. The goal is to build a new warehouse style building like it is currently at the site. It would be used for Hiawatha Corp's storage of dry goods and cold storage of their materials for their production. Beyond that, life happens and the future is unknown to everyone. And so that's why I've used at this point and other terms that allude to the fact that we don't know the future. As far as living in the area, I was born and raised in Shelton, went to Shelton High School. My father actually developed Hiawatha Boulevard and all the adjacent things. I went to Mason County Christian School on Hiawatha Boulevard. I developed many parcels and projects on Johns Prairie and Hiawatha Boulevard. And so I'm very familiar with the community, and our family and myself have been committed to the area for generations.
Thank you, Mark. Is there anybody else who'd like to ask a question before we move into public testimony? At that time, you'll be given an opportunity to say what you like and you think is important. Any other questions? Say your name and I will call on you. Hearing none, I'm going to close this aspect of and move into public testimony. This is now your opportunity to speak on this issue, please. I hope you understand that there are others, and just so you know, for the record, we have a lot of comments that are going to need to be read into the record, so that's going to take some time. So what I'm going to ask of you is please be brief and be on point, if you don't mind, regarding this issue. So if you would like, I'm going to give you the opportunity first, those who raise their hands who would like to give public testimony to the commission regarding why we should, shouldn't, or what changes we should make. Please raise your hand. I see none. Please state your name.
Now, I'd like to make a question, but I still don't understand how to raise my hand.
Oh, that's good. Well, it's an aspect on Zoom, but that's okay. You don't have to. We can do it this way. So, Mark, you're going to want to testify. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but I want to give other people a chance to testify first. I don't have to be the first one.
No problem, Mark. All right. So, Mark, is there anybody else? Please, right now, just say your name so I can write it down on the list. John, are you going to want to testify? I'm sorry, John. Okay, John Gilmore. Okay. John Gilmore. Is there others right now? Please unmute and say your name. Okay, John Gilmore, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you, sir. Please go ahead and start your public testimony. I would appreciate if you'd say your name and where you're from.
John Gilmore, and I live on Rockway in Hiawatha Park.
Thank you, John.
I think for point of clarification, I believe your planning commission specifically recommended approval of this zoning change, but I believe it also specifically said that it was subject to access only from Johns Prairie Road and never ever from Hiawatha Boulevard. And I think that was in perpetuity, meaning that it would, even if the property owner changed, that would never be able to use Hiawatha Boulevard for their trucks or other commercial businesses. Isn't that correct, Randy? I think that was part of the
Yes, John, because you asked me a question on that, I'll answer. Yes, that is their recommendation, but understand that a recommendation for the planning commission is a recommendation and nothing more. It is up to the commission. But even then, even if a decision is made, enforcement, again, is a whole other matter.
Okay, I've got that, but I would hope that you guys think that that's a really good deal. You know, this neighborhood has been a very successful neighborhood. It's a middle-class neighborhood. This property is at the very entrance to our property. It's by our mailboxes. It's and your earlier point of what would happen in the future. Granted, maybe this guy who has a plan now for building storage bins, but when it is changed to industrial properties, that means anything could happen day after tomorrow when he sells it. So I like the idea of in perpetuity. I also think that this property is going to be directly across the street from new housing. And a 15-foot buffer zone, to me, is not reasonable. I think a 30-foot or whatever with hedges or some maintained. Keep in mind that on the other end of the street where it is industrial, we have that big buffer zone, of course, with the power line, but those industrial properties on the other side have much more than a 10-foot or 15-foot buffer zone from the road. In fact, I'd guess some of them are 30 or 40 or more feet. So it's not unusual to ask, I think, for that change. Regardless of what the property owner has to say, I think it is really important that you guys put some of this into the requirement or into the zoning change. Changing it from a single family dwelling zoning to an industrial zoning is a tremendous change, especially when it's right in the heart of our neighborhood. I guess that's it for the moment.
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much, John. Next up on my list, I have Mark. Mark Golda, would you like to speak now?
Yes, this is probably a good time as any. John Gilmore is correct in that the planning board, commission did in fact make a unanimous recommendation that certain conditions be imposed in the event that this change is approved by this commission. I want to remind the commission that this change is forever for us residents here that are directly affected by this. And to have a residential properties rezoned right to industrial is going from left to right. And there are no promises, no representations, nothing in writing from the current applicant as to what this land is going to be used for. And even if he did, it becomes a burden upon the residents to basically get the county to act in the event that the owner of the property decides to do something other than what he's permitted to do. I think kicking the can down the road and making this subject to some other commission is evading something that the commission has the power to stop now. I think if there were 4 different things that the planning commission made a unanimous recommendation about, and while you're right, it's not binding, I do think that if this commission does not approve these 4 conditions, these 4 subject tos, the commission has to put on the record right here why it's overriding these recommendations and what those particular reasons are. I think it's not responsible to pass the buck on this. Anyway, what those 4 conditions were that due to concerns for safety for the residents of the Hiawatha Park, that there be no egress or ingress on Hiawatha Boulevard. Because the current owner, Mark Kamen, he has access to these properties from Johns Prairie Road, a county road that can handle industrial traffic. Hiawatha Boulevard is a thin crust of asphalt, 2 lanes, no shoulder, it's just a small private road that moms with kids, scooters, and pedestrians walk on every single day. As for notice, Cal had mentioned earlier about notice being placed on the properties, and I had told the commission, and I'm telling you now that an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper jammed on a stick on the ground on each of these lots is a mockery of public notice to the residents, the people most directly impacted by this radical change in land use. Basically, we're not told anything. Then it was also noted to the commission that none of the residents of the subdivision were noticed about this. And Mark came in and said, well, I'm only required to do this to the people who are within 300 feet. Well, there were no houses within 300 feet. They're just, just basically, I'm on the second house from this property, and I'm probably 600 feet down Hiawatha Boulevard. But I can't get to my house. I can't go to check my mail without going past these 3 subject properties. And every resident has to do that. To have to go through an industrial zone to get to your residence, to me, is an undue burden on the residents. And I don't know why the commissioners would permit such a thing. I think that also that there was a talk about imposing a vegetative and a physical barrier on this. And I can tell you that it's important to note that these properties, as well as all the properties on Hiawatha Boulevard, their property boundaries end at the center line of the road. So if you impose a 15-foot vegetative barrier from the center line of the road, you've effectively imposed no vegetative barrier and no physical barrier there's no setback. So whatever's going on in these properties will be just as visible as they are now. So I think that the idea about having a vegetative barrier and a physical barrier has to be from the edge of the road, and it has to be much greater than 15 feet. I would suggest a 50-foot minimum barrier, considering the fact that he's putting up metal fab buildings. Could you imagine living in a subdivision? You have to drive past metal fab buildings to get there, to get home. I mean, how can somebody even consider doing this to their neighbors? That is a minimum. That would be, to me, I can't imagine doing that to any neighbor of mine, even if I didn't get along with them. So these 4 and also the commissioners from the Planning Commission stated that this should be put on the deed so that it travels to subsequent owners. I do not see a problem with putting this on a deed. And if this can't be done by this commission, but to kick the can down the road to someplace else to do this, or to make sure somebody else does this, is passing the buck. And I think that these properties should be disapproved for a change of use if you can't forbid ingress and egress on Hiawatha Boulevard to protect the safety of the residents and their children, and that you put these barriers set back 50 feet or more from the center line of the property of the road, because other than that, it's effectively no barrier at all. So these ideas about deeding these requirements were included in the recommendations. And I think it's important, like I said before, that the commission state on the record why you would be overriding the Planning Commission's recommendations, which are unanimously made for these particular conditions.
Thank you very much, Mark. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to give public testimony at this time? If so, again, unmute yourself and say your name. Mark, would you like to give public testimony at this time?
Is this the correct time, or should I
Yes.
wait till after
No,
all
this
the...
is the correct time for public testimony. So if you want to testify, just testify about, your belief or that you want it, don't want it, now's a good time.
I would just like to say to the commission that as the applicant, I am not opposed to having some kind of through perpetuity conditions on the rezone. As I stated in the Planning Commission, I'm open to that and would be happy to work with Kel and the Planning Department to achieve those goals.
Thank you, Mark. Is there anybody else who would like to testify at this time? This is your opportunity. Please unmute yourself, say your name. Then I'm going to move into one other part of this public testimony. Mackenzie, you have a bunch of written testimony that needs to be read into the record.
I do. The first one is from Beth McBain and Gregory Ward. They wrote in, "We are residents of the Hiawatha Park neighborhood located adjacent to the 3 parcels shown above. We can state with confidence that many members of our community are highly concerned with the proposed change in zoning from neighborhood residential
to commercial industrial. For those of us who provided input to the Mason County Planning Advisory Commission, who met July 19th, 2021, our concerns have not changed subsequent to their recommendation that the proposed rezone move forward for approval during your meeting scheduled for August 31st, 2021. Because we are unable to participate in the commission upcoming meeting via Zoom, we wish to make our concerns known in writing and/or entered into public comment to be read during your meeting. The applicant, Mark Kamen, has shared with members of our neighborhood that the plan for this property is to construct additional large warehouses for use by the new owners of Hiawatha Corp., DBA Hiawatha Evergreens. Even though he has stated that this is a non-project project at this time, we continue to be concerned with issues such as what percentage of the site will be covered with impervious surfaces, water runoff, vegetation to be removed or altered, types of noise created by the project, short and long-term use, what kind of light or glare will be produced by the project, and others. Hiawatha Park and Cardona Estates is a neighborhood of single-family homes built on large lots, approximately 1 acre each. We have a private water system and private roads that the residents manage and pay to maintain. Our neighborhood is home to active residents who jog, walk their dogs, push babies in strollers, and walk along with their small children as they learn to ride their bikes. Seniors, teens, moms, and dads walk daily to the mailboxes at the entrance to Hiawatha Park, and we currently feel safe on our roadways. This would change dramatically if vehicles serving a commercial industrial enterprise were allowed to enter and exit the site proposed for rezone from Hiawatha Boulevard. The goal of every resident we've spoken with is to maintain the quiet and peaceful setting of our neighborhood. Many of our new neighbors have moved into this community to get away from being adjacent to commercial enterprises and congestion. None were in favor of this land that is now a part of the adjoining neighborhood turning into an industrial zone. The combined property taxes generated from our neighborhood are not insignificant, and we are all interested in maintaining the value of our homes. Many fear home values could be put at risk. We believe that all items listed above are legitimate issues. However, our main concerns involve making sure that there is no vehicle access from these parcels to Hiawatha Boulevard, and that all traffic entering and exiting the site be from Johns Prairie Road only. In addition, we feel that it is only reasonable that the county require a substantial visual buffer zone of vegetation and fencing, if and where necessary, between Hiawatha Boulevard and the proposed expanded industrial complex. We request that this buffer zone be wider than the typical buffer to help mitigate the impact of this change of zoning from neighborhood to industrial. We also request that should the rezone be approved by you, language be included stating that the access to subject property for now and in perpetuity be from Johns Prairie Road with no access ever to Hiawatha Boulevard, and that the expanded buffer zone be maintained by current and all subsequent owners or assigns of this property as described by the parcel numbers above. We also got public testimony from Lindsay and Travis Tatchell. They state that they are writing this letter to convey concerns with the rezone of 3 land parcels adjacent to Shelton's Hiawatha neighborhood. Specifically, concerns focus on the possibility of access to these property parcels from Hiawatha Boulevard. In previous communication with Marissa Watson of Mason County Community Services, she mentioned that the Planning Advisory Commission members approved the recommendation of the rezone with the caveat that there would be a binding restriction that access must be off Johns Prairie and that the visual and noise buffering required in the development regulations must be adhered to. We are hoping that this binding restriction would accompany a rezone of the parcels to commercial industrial, and that the restriction would remain regardless of future sale of the properties. As the parents of 2 young children, one of the main draws of the Hiawatha neighborhood was the promise of quiet streets where our sons could enjoy walking and learning how to ride bicycles in safety. Having purchased our home in 2020, it is evident that this is a unique feature to our neighborhood. Shelton has very few neighborhoods that offer quiet streets, and on any given day, a visitor to Hiawatha will see many people enjoying walks children riding bikes together, families walking dogs, and parents pushing strollers. The walkability of Hiawatha is part of what makes the neighborhood special and contributes to the neighborhood's friendly feel. Hiawatha Boulevard is roughly U-shaped, and adding traffic to one leg of the U will cut off a third of our walking and biking space. The parcels sit between the residences of neighborhood and our community mailboxes, which make this third of Hiawatha Boulevard a popular route for foot and bike travel. Our primary concern is keeping additional vehicle traffic and likely heavy vehicle traffic from traveling to these parcels using Hiawatha Boulevard. We are hoping that the entrance to these parcels would only be from Johns Prairie Road, which is better equipped to handle such traffic. We request that the binding restriction mentioned above accompanies the rezone of properties for now and for all future sales of the properties. Additionally, we request a large buffer zone between Hiawatha Boulevard and improvements on the property to maintain our neighborhood's quiet, attractive, and peaceful qualities. Thank you for your time and listening to our concerns. The third public comment is from Jerry Gregerson, who is the president of the Hiawatha Park Homeowners Association. And he writes, as president of Hiawatha Park, I would like to see that our main access road from Johns Prairie is not used to access the Cayman Commercial Rezone property. Also, a buffer zone needs to be maintained. And that is all that I have.
Thank you very much. So with that being said, I'm going to give one last opportunity to somebody to do public testimony. If you have not spoken, please say your name and I will call on you. If you would like to do public testimony, if you've not spoken already, please say your name and I will call on you. Hearing none, I'm going to close public testimony and move to commissioner deliberations. Commissioners, before we start, I'd like to throw a few things out just so you know. No matter what you put on for restrictions to enforce, especially on a private road. But I do want to point out there may be an opportunity, if they all agree to do it, for the applicant to actually give up their easement and access rights on a road. Especially if the others all agree. The problem that you may have is there is probably a requirement for maintenance on that road, and so others would have to agree that they would give up the maintenance payment as well. But that's a lot harder to do. But I just wanted to point out that it has been done before to give up easement rights to roads. So with that being said, this is an interesting situation for the public to know. You always try to give great deference to the commissioners that are the ones elected to represent that area, but this one is one of those rare ones again where it's bisected by two different commissioners. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. So with that being said, we are open now for commissioner deliberation and or a motion. I would entertain conversations.
Mr. Chair, I do actually have another question for the applicant, if you'd allow that.
Yes, please. Mark, would you mind coming back on for a question from the commissioner?
No problem.
Thanks, Mark. So just a couple of quick questions generally, but right now, how are trucks accessing the current facility? How do you know, as I look at the map, I have the map up here on my other screen. You know, I'm looking at also Mason Transit is in this area. We have, you know, dozens of buses that are stored in this general area as well. How are you, and I'm not going to ask you to speak for Mason Transit, but how is access generally handled at this point? And then, you know, just as you think about your potential expansion in this area, you know, what are kind of your views on, you know, intruding on residential developments and urban growth areas for the purposes of business and industrial expansion?
So first I'll talk about the access, your question. Currently off of Johns Prairie at 680 East Johns Prairie is where there's a large entrance to the current warehouses. They're there if you're looking at the map. Right now there's like 45,000 to 50,000 square feet of warehousing already on the property. adjacent parcels. And the new project would access the same way. So that's about a quarter mile before Hiawatha Boulevard is where their commercial access is. As far as the current use on Hiawatha, you know, Commissioner Randy suggested vacating the easement. The hard thing is, as Mark Golda pointed out, that the easement actually goes through the property and so to restrict use to your own property, I think wouldn't necessarily be the appropriate manner to do that. I think more of a condition saying that all commercial access to any future projects on these parcels has to come from Johns Prairie via some other method. Like I currently do also own the other frontage, undeveloped frontage along there. So there is multiple options for accessing off of Johns Prairie. Even in the future, if for some reason Hiawatha Corp wasn't able to proceed with their project, there are other options that would require using Hiawatha's entrance. Currently, you know, Hiawatha Boulevard does have a lot of industrial and commercial use on it, both entrances. As you mentioned, MTA routes all their buses onto Hiawatha Boulevard already. If you look on the map, it's almost directly across from the mailboxes, and they use that for their bus exits. And then on the other side of the U shape, it does go through significant commercial industrial properties, and Brady Trucking has all their trucking going out on the Hiawatha Boulevard, Millwork, and a few others do as well. As far as the concern of the neighborhood, like I totally hear it, and that's why we are open to making these conditions, because we want to be good neighbors. And we do believe that Hiawatha is a pretty special neighborhood, and we're open to making sure that it's preserved.
Thank you.
Commissioner, then I have another question for Kel.
Please, Kel.
Yes.
So in Mr. Golda's testimony, he remarked about where the buffer begins. Can you provide us a little bit of clarification on where that buffer is? That from their property line, road center line, end of our right of way? Where does that 15-foot buffer kick in?
So the buffer where the buffer is on that parcel 3200714900034 on that side property line that it shares with that residential, the residential parcel on the east side. There would be the required buffer there. Along the road frontage of Hiawatha, and to Mr. Kamen's point about access of Hiawatha, he owns a portion of that easement, and you know, you'd have access off of there. To have access, of course, would be allowed. Whether or not you end up restricting commercial access is another issue. But we would expect that that there be a 15-foot buffer on adjacent to Hiawatha, with the exception of any access. Because the property across Hiawatha is also zoned residential. So hopefully that makes sense. I could share my screen, I think, if I wanted to get up my the map.
Did that answer your question, Kevin, or do you?
Yeah, that helps. That helps.
Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Trask, do you have any questions or comments?
I do. So in looking at the map, it looks like the mailboxes are on the first parcel. Is that correct?
You know, because Marissa is the one who went out there and I did not, I'm not going to be able to speak to where the mailboxes are. It will have to be one of the residences of Hiawatha or Mr. Kamen.
Commissioner Trask, if you will, I'll ask, we can ask Mark Golda Mark,
Yes,
could you please help us by describing where the mailboxes are, please?
I don't have a map in front of me. You probably do there, but the mailboxes are either on the, either on one, they're somewhere near the border of the first and the second properties, okay? My main concern is what Kel had just said.
Oh, excuse me, Mark, that's not what this is for. Right now, we're just asking the question of where it's located. I'm sorry.
Somewhere around the boundary of his first and second lots. I don't have the numbers in front of me, the particular
That's
numbers.
okay. Thank you so much.
And then also, at looking down, so if I pulled up Google Maps, it's amazing what you can find there now. If you look at the map, so it looks like there is a path or a trail that goes through the industrial area down to the other part of Hiawatha Trail, which is or Hiawatha Boulevard, which is by Olympic Mountain Millworks. And I see that there are residential houses there. What type of a buffer do they have there? Is that the 15-foot or is that more?
You know,
Sorry.
I'm not sure. I think I would have to see the map to understand. I know my brain has a hard time interpreting someone's description without actually seeing the map as well. So apologize for that, but.
Well, if I knew how to share my screen, I would, but I don't. I am not a Zoom guru.
I'm able to share my screen if that's allowed by the commission.
Yes, it is, but does that actually apply to her question? You can share your screen, but are you sharing of the trail that she's talking about?
We can see, let's try it. If
Okay.
that's okay.
Yes, Commissioner, are there any objection?
No, I think that'd be great.
Okay, please, Kel, go ahead.
All right. Are you able to see this screen?
Yes, we are.
Mhm.
And you can see my mouse?
Yep.
So this is the county's aerial layer. It is not as good as the Google Earth, but it helps orient with the existing zoning. These are the 3 parcels that we are discussing today that are zoned residential, and they are being asked to be zoned as commercial industrial, which is these parcels. This is the Hiawatha Boulevard that we're discussing. And these properties on either side are already zoned commercial industrial. And so, of course, you know, we can't prevent commercial access here. So it would be, you know, you're discussing restricting this. This, I believe, is the BPA access. It runs in this direction. And that's the tree line. That's the edge of the BPA, not access, sorry, the BPA easement. So Commissioner Trask, tell me, where to orient my mouse in order to get to the trail section you were talking about?
So first, the mailboxes are just up a bit from so take your, you can't see where I'm pointing. So if you take, if you take your mouse up.
Up towards the Johns Prairie.
Yeah, up towards John Kerr,
okay.
Hiawatha. Go up just a little bit more. Right, down. Right, you'll see a line. Now, I think that those are the mailboxes.
Here?
Yeah.
So, yeah, if any of the residences or Mr. Kamen can verify whether or not that's the mailbox location?
Mr. Kamen is verifying that is it.
Okay.
Okay.
He's using American for yes by shaking his head.
Awesome.
And I wasn't looking at him, so sorry. Thank you. I have like 3 screens here, so.
All right, and then there it looks like it's either a trail or a road that is just right down from it.
This one?
Mm-hmm. And it looks like it leads all the way to the other part of the Hiawatha Boulevard.
Is that the BPA line?
Is that the BPA?
Yeah, see, this is the BPA easement. Let me kind of scroll out so you could just, well,
Yeah,
that's not helpful, but you can see
yeah.
the easement runs like
Yeah.
this. And so that's a BPA easement, but it's still on private property owned by the underlying property owner.
Yeah.
And so even though there's a trail here, that is on, the Cayman property or private property. I can't speak to whether he allows or the property owner allows public access there or not. But even though Bonneville Power is a public utility, they do not own that underlying property. Is my understanding. It's still in private ownership.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Now, if you could return the screen, please.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, great. That answers quite a few of my questions. My curiosity is high here. Okay, so that is the BPA easement that I'm looking at.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. And so the homes further down that easement, I don't know, I'm terrible at distances, but it does look like that there's probably at least 15 feet buffer between that easement and the backyards of the other homes on Hiawatha Boulevard. Just kind of talking to myself here.
Okay.
Out loud. I'm not sure if everybody wants to hear that or not. Okay.
So at this
Can I just-
point,
can I-
go ahead.
can I-
Go ahead.
Sorry. I don't want to belabor the mailbox discussion any more than we already have, maybe, but can't they just call the post office and have those relocated to has anybody talked to the post office? Do they put those in? I mean, do they get a say in any of this, or?
That's a question I do not have the answer to. I'm not sure how that works.
Would that be the HOA there? Should they be in touch with the post office? Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
At this point, I don't know that anybody's asked to move the mailboxes, and it wouldn't be our call anyway.
Yeah, that's why we talked kind of extensively about the mailboxes, and I just
Mhm.
think that might be an HOA post office conversation.
Well, in order to help, can I, if you don't mind, can I ask the two commissioners, not asking you to approve or disapprove at this moment, but I'd like to have your thoughts on the buffer if it was to be approved. Maybe this can help structure it.
Right, so currently it's a 15-foot buffer, correct?
Correct.
The request from the planning commission is an extended buffer, if I'm not mistaken. And the request from the landowners adjacent is an extended buffer. I'm not sure that it's necessary. I'm just putting it out there for what the options are in front of us.
Cal, can you just remind us what did the planning commission set a preferred buffer distance beyond the 15?
Yes, they did.
Thanks, Cal.
It wasn't put in, I apologize, but it is noted in the staff report by Marissa, but it doesn't state the amount. I'll look in her staff report.
As you do that, I'll also try to pull up the minutes. See if it's listed in there.
While we're looking, Commissioner Trash, do you have any comments on it?
On the buffer,
Yeah.
I'd like to know what the planning commission proposed.
I'm gonna take a quick break and check with my with clerical staff who staffs the planning commission and get her minutes. Hold on.
Thank you. Just for the public, please understand we appreciate your patience. This is very important to us and we want to do things correct, and sometimes being correct takes time. So please have patience. Yeah, in all the papers they've given, I have nothing.
Yeah, I'm looking through all the material I have, and I have nothing as well stating a preference for the buffer.
And just so you know, there's a reason why we're not asking the public what their perception was of the planning commission meeting, because we want to base it on the actual minutes and statements from the planning commission, not interpretations.
Okay, I just verified with Mariah Fraser, who took the minutes, and her notes that they did recommend, the planning commission did recommend approval with the 30-foot buffer.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So with that information, again, if it was to be approved, do you have a preference on a buffer?
So I'll just share my thoughts. I think this rezone request passes muster. I think it is in line with both the spirit and letter of the law. And I think it is, it should be approved. That said, I think it should be approved with the planning commission's recommendations. They took testimony as we did here, and they arrived at that position. And I would be supportive of this rezone with those additional conditions. I think as we look at where this parcel lays, it is clearly in the urban growth area. There is, it's situated next to other like uses. This is the real challenge of growth management, in particular in areas of the urban growth area that are mixed between residential and commercial or industrial. And so I think there should be the opportunity to follow through on this rezone. However, those conditions seem to be reasonable. There's already access off of Johns Prairie, which based on testimony today, is being used. There might be some other issues as we went through with the mailboxes that need to be resolved, but I think this rezone request is in line with the law and allowable under our code, and so I would be supportive of it with those conditions.
Yeah, I would have to say that I agree with Commissioner Schutte and with the Planning Commission by going with the 30-foot buffer and limiting access off of John, or having access to the property from Johns Prairie Road.
So I'm going to ask you for a motion here in a moment, but how it would be phrased if it becomes a motion would be interesting. It could be done right now. Commissioner Trask, you've mentioned 2 items, but I think there were several, but I don't have them written down here in front of us. In the future, I hope that we do from the Planning Commission, so it's very specific what we're asking for. Commissioner Schutte, when he mentioned it, he mentioned with approval of the request for the rezone with the additional conditions as recommended by the Planning Commission. would one of you want to go with one or the other, with just those two provisions of the 30-foot buffer and access, commercial access only off of Johns Prairie, or with additional conditions as recommended by the Planning Commission?
No, I would feel comfortable with stating the additional restrictions from the Planning Commission.
Commissioner Schutte?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said, but
Yeah.
now that we talk about it, Kel, do you have any were there conditions beyond those two?
Not that I recall, no, but I do think that you may want to consider moving the mailboxes south to the residential.
Do we have that
zone
authority?
property.
That seems like it's outside of our scope for being able to do. We have no authority with the residents, the HOA. We have no authority with the postal. So to require that is outside of our purview, in my opinion.
Makes sense. I would just throw that out there as friendly neighborhood thing to consider.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
I
all.
would absolutely expect that there should be a conversation between those three parties to figure out locating the mailboxes in the most appropriate place.
Yeah. So I will entertain a motion. And so do we want to just use these two bullet points of requiring a 30-foot buffer and limiting commercial access only to Johns Prairie and not Hiawatha?
I would be comfortable with that.
Okay. Would one of you like to make that motion? Or would you like me to read it and one of you say I'm so moved?
You read it.
Okay. The Mason County Board of Commissioners shall approve a request to rezone 3 parcels 32007-14-90024. Also parcel number 32007-14-90021 and parcel number 32007-14-90034 from neighborhood residential NR to commercial industrial, with the provisions that there will be a 30-foot buffer imposed. Commercial access will be limited only to Johns Prairie and not allowed on Hiawatha.
So moved.
Do I have a
Second.
second? Okay, dang, and I have to read it again. That's how it works. It has been moved and seconded that the Board of County Commissioners approve and request a rezone of 3 parcels 32007-14-90024, 32007-14-90021, and 32007-14-90034 from neighborhood residential NR to commercial industrial, with the provision that there will be a 30-foot buffer on the parcel, and access for commercial will be limited to Johns Prairie only and not allowed on Hiawatha. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I appreciate everybody who both attended today and wrote in on this issue. I recognize the challenges that growth present in our community and appreciate the respectful dialogue. And I would also mention, as a former member of the Planning Advisory Commission, these things are not taken lightly. I recall a rezone that I did when I was on the Planning Commission about 5 or 6 years ago, regarding a proposal to rezone some parcels for self-storage units. 6 years later, those self-storage units aren't there. But I recall vividly the conversations that happened at the Planning Commission. And so as we deliberate these things, the public comment is welcome and appreciated. For the property owners, the applicants proposing this rezone, as you continue to grow and as you look at your role in the community, it's important that you work with the county on making improvements, and partnering with us to look at making improvements on Johns Prairie, potentially and welcome that input as well. This will probably upset people on both sides of this issue, but perhaps we're getting close to needing a roundabout in this area on Johns Prairie. And so just leave you with those thoughts. With growth come some challenges and some opportunities as well for us all to work together to make it manageable for everybody.
Mr. Trask, any comment?
I sit here and giggle because a roundabout.
I know, boom. Thanks, thanks, Commissioner Shooty. Go ahead.
Team Roundabout.
But I have to agree, I really truly appreciate people sharing their thoughts and their testimonies, and staff for and the Planning Commission for looking at this and working for both. I think the commercial and for residential, we want to protect everybody's backyards. We truly do. And so that helps a lot. We are going to grow, no doubt. But to make it so that it's good for everyone, I think is where I would like to focus.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I will also add in just by saying, I understand the comments regarding the Planning Commission and the role of the County Commission. I also served on the Planning Commission and chaired it for years. With that being said, there are two different roles, and the role of a County Commissioner is not exactly the same. And so we take other things into consideration, and sometimes we do choose to do things that are different than the Citizen Committee came up with. It doesn't make it right, it doesn't make it wrong, it's just how it is. But we always take it seriously. And again, I want to thank everybody for being kind with each other as they did their presentations and their public testimony. With that being said, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. The hearing is closed. Next up.
I just need to say, for clarifying, the ordinance that's in front of you does not include the conditions. And so I will work with Marissa to redraft that and give that to Mackenzie for your signature. So you won't see your signature in front of you for a couple weeks.
No, that's okay. Like I said, we knew.
Thank you.
We did. Thank you. All right, next up, we're going to open item number 10.3, a public hearing to approve the franchise agreement between Mason County and the Clifton Pebble Beach Water District to construct, operate, and maintain their water system along North Shore Road. Staff Mike Collins, but it looks like Loretta is there. Hi, Loretta.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning.
This is a hearing to consider a renewal of a franchise agreement with the Pebble Beach Water District. So this is a water district that exists along the North Shore Road, and they have about, I believe, 48 connections. The president of the water district, Dale Hoover, submitted an application and paid the fees, and we are recommending approval of renewing this franchise agreement with the Clifton Pebble Beach Water District, and happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions for staff regarding testimony?
Not for me.
Nope.
Is there anybody in the public who have questions for staff regarding her testimony that she just gave us? Please unmute yourself, say your name. I'll give you an opportunity to ask a question. Hearing none, I will close that aspect and move into public testimony. Is there any public who would like to testify regarding this issue? Please unmute yourself, say your name, and I'll give you an opportunity to move on. Raise your hand or unmute yourself, say your name, and I will give you an opportunity to speak. Hearing none, I close public testimony, move into commissioner deliberations and or a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the franchise agreement between Mason County and Clifton Pebble Beach Water District to construct, operate, and maintain their water system along the North Shore Road.
I'll second.
It has been moved and second to approve the franchise agreement between Mason County and the Clifton Pebble Beach Water District to construct, operate, and maintain their water system along the North Shore Road. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. That hearing is closed. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to item number 11, which is our board reports and calendars. Commissioner Shooty, if you don't mind starting, Commissioner Trask, and then myself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One item from last week, I want to mention that I had an opportunity to go on a ride along with two of our sheriff's deputies last week. And so I want to give a special thank you to Deputies Albright and Phillips for letting me spend the day with them. Just a tremendous amount of work that they do every day, and can't say thank you enough to them. It was really interesting. One of the complaints that we get regularly, or at least I get regularly, is about speeding in neighborhoods, and why aren't we out there doing more enforcement, and why aren't we, posting up on, the side of the road, tagging speeders and everything. And one piece of, just sort of anecdotal, for that is they were planning to go do speed enforcement in a neighborhood in the community. And as they were headed in that direction, the call came out for a vehicle collision in another part of the county, which completely changed the direction of their day. And one of the things that I just ask folks to realize is that it's a demand side operation. And so when those calls come in, it is, their job to respond to those and prioritize and you have to go to those emergencies when they arise. And so just really appreciate the work that they do. It was great to spend time with them. It's also a great opportunity to see the community from a different perspective, and just hear what some of our county staff on that side of the street are dealing with day in and day out. So just a big thank you to them for giving me that chance. Going forward, today I have MACECOM this afternoon, as well as the Shelton Opioid Awareness Walk. And then I have a call with the Army Corps of Engineers later this week, and I'll also be out of the office for a few days around the holiday, and then back in. Have a meeting with the EDC. Let me see here. Have a call with the city and SC Johnson regarding our pilot program. As well as the Mason County Coordinated Entry Advisory Group meeting. Also have our Mason County Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Policy Group meeting. And then back on Monday, the 13th for briefings with my regular check-in with the BHASO staff leadership, as well as the Mason Crisis Service System of Care Work Group ahead of our next regular meeting on September 14th.
Thank you. Commissioner Trask?
All right. Well, later today, I have a meeting with a member of our Public Works Board for the state. I'm meeting with the governor's office later. Tomorrow, I have Oakland Bay meeting. And then our EOC meeting on Thursday. Lunch with a constituent at the Strip. Public Works Board Executive Committee meeting, plus a DNR beneficiary meeting. Then we have Labor Day off. And then we have a Shelton Dementia Study Group, an MTA pre-agenda meeting, courthouse security meeting, the EOC meeting, a local emergency management meeting, plus a coastal caucus meeting. Public Works Board Executive Committee meeting, Public Works Board meeting. And then we're back on the 13th for our briefing, WASAC Virtual Assembly. And I believe we are having county administrator interviews also on the 13th. And then I have a Community Action Council Bylaws Committee meeting. And then we're back for our commission meeting.
Thank you. All right, so the last thing, we've had my Kansas Board, Mason Transit Authority, Shelton Chamber of Commerce had an event up at Mason Lake. I met with the candidates that are running for State House of Representatives, area command meetings, Peninsula Regional Transportation Organization constituents in regards to speed signs and speed camera enforcement, etc. Different businesses dealing with COVID issues right now and asking for help on how to continue to move forward as things may get restricted again. And then we had many executive sessions coming up. As was mentioned, we are going to be having a meeting regarding the county administrators and interviews with that. There's overdose awareness walks today and tomorrow. Mason County Housing Authority meeting. And again, thank you, commissioners, for stepping up and doing what we've never done for them in all these years. We've just made a big change in the community, and it's because of you guys getting involved. I think it's wonderful. I just didn't want that to go without a second thank you from the community. Area command meeting. Mason Transit Authority Policy Committee meeting, a meet with the folks at the school districts again regarding Wi-Fi, the law enforcement and firefighters board, Olympic Regional Clean Air Authority board planning team meeting, the audit committee, the Economic Development Council meeting, Port of Allen celebrating 100 years, brings us back for briefings and we do it all over again. All right, with that being said, that's all we have on our calendar is, can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
He couldn't wait to be the first one. It has been moved and seconded that we adjourn. Hearing no objection, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good week.
Bye, everybody.